Good morning. Hmm. Facebook's so weird. Good morning. Facebook needed to like flick, get things organized. Thank you. Instagram is telling all my followers that I've started a live video. Thanks, Instagram. You're the best. Thanks. Sorry, I'm a little late today. This was every once in a while you have one of those days or those mornings where you're like, there's nowhere I need to be or nothing I need to do, and you're just like not aware of the time somehow. Yeah, that was one of those mornings for me today. At about 8:45, I was like, wait a minute. I'm supposed to be doing some live office hours at 9 o'clock. Okay. So I ran upstairs and put on some makeup, put my hair back. So it looked, at least somewhat presentable. So you're welcome. So I know what I'm talking about, and I've been thinking about it on the weekend, but normally I do a little tiny, outline. Um, so I'm like fully off the cuff today. So you're welcome for how squirrely this might get. You're welcome. You're welcome, welcome, welcome. Fully off the cuff. Yes, so here we are. Good morning. Monday morning. Monday. I saw two live shows over the weekend, and that's why I think I'm still recovering. Also, because it's like it's like a rainy day out today. It's warm. It's very warm. So we're like 8 degrees Celsius. I don't know what that is in Fahrenheit. Go figure it out. Actually, someone told me once. I think you like double it and then add 16 or something. I don't know. Anyway, it's perfect. I love 8 degrees. Except that if it was a little cooler, we'd have snow right now. But instead, we have slushy, rainy, blah. So it's like it's just a little, it's a slightly, I don't want to say depressing, but it's a little bit. It's all good. Okay, let's stop whining now. So yes, I saw two shows on the weekend. And I was like sobbing because like live theater. Oh my gosh, what? I was just like, yeah, it was a lot. There were a lot of tears because live theater, real live singing, and also one of the shows I saw was The Drowsy Chaperone, which is a Canadian musical. It's won a whole bunch of awards because it's genius and it's brilliant, and it's about love of music theater. Oh, that was crazy. And then one of the other show that I saw was Jesus Christ Superstar. It's my first time seeing that live. And so that was crazy. And every single singer, I mean, you have to be just an incredible singer to you just have to be so good. All of the roles in that show required just spot on vocals. So it was good. Oh, so good. Okay. Do a little inhale, exhale. Here we go. My name is Dr. Shannon Coates. I am north of Toronto, and I am live here talking about doing some live office hours. And oh yes, and I need to say as well, on Wednesday, final pop-up class, voice ped class of the year, adolescent and expanding voice. So that is where we're going to talk about what to expect as folks transition through puberty, and what to expect in terms of physiological changes and how that impacts the way that we work with those singers. Okay, that's on Wednesday. Also, the Vocal Instrument 101, which is my online course, is having its 3rd year anniversary sale, and that is the basics, the anatomy and physiology of the singing voice. So if you were looking for information about what does the larynx do, how does this all coordinate, all that kind of information, how does breathing work, all that stuff, resonance, talk about formants in there too. So if you're looking for that kind of information, now might be a good time to check out the Vocal Instrument 101 live online course, because it is 30% off. What? And I even have payment plans now. What? I know, it's crazy. Okay, I got all that out of the way. Let's talk a little bit about some teaching singing. So Mondays I try to do, in my live office hours on Mondays, I try to talk a little bit more practical, like a little bit more practical application stuff. Often we talk about technical exercises or ways to think about a specific coordination, and or ways to accomplish a specific tonal outcome, etc. And then usually on Fridays we talk a little bit more philosophical, if you will, a little bit more around the pedagogy of voice teaching. And so on Friday, actually this coming Friday, I'm going to talk about when you have a hammer, everything looks like a nail. So I'm going to talk about that in the context of voice teaching, right? Or if you have a screwdriver, everything looks like a screw. So if you've heard that before, that phrase before, I'm going to talk about that in the context of teaching voice, and how sometimes we get a really specific thing in our mind, and so then every tonal outcome is associated to that specific thing. So we'll talk about that. Today we are talking about exercises, and going from exercises to performance, and making exercises really useful and making them really effective. So the reason that this kind of came into my head a little bit is just, well, first of all, I work with undergraduate voice pedagogy classes, and I teach an undergraduate voice pedagogy class. And as part of that class, we have a teaching practicum. And so in that teaching practicum, I get to see a lot of beginning teachers, right? And work with a lot of beginning teachers. And one of the things that I do see over and over in that is my weird cat. Can you hear my cat yowling for whatever reason? Heaven only knows why. That's Pedro the cat, everyone. Pedro the cat, just yowling away. All right. Who knows? It's possible that sounds a little bit like his, he doesn't normally yowl like that at this time of day. Normally it's like at night when everybody's in bed, because he's a jerk. Cats are jerks. Don't let anybody tell you otherwise. So I'm not sure what's going on there. Maybe someone's locked in the laundry room. That happens sometimes. He's also our warning cat. Wow, off track. You're so welcome. He's also our little warning cat. So he's the one who's like, we have no food. Yowl, yowl, yowl. Somebody's locked in the laundry room. Yowl, yowl, yowl. Which happens all the time. Anyway, I'll go get them if I need to later. Okay, so, and by someone I mean the other cat is locked in the laundry rooms, because sometimes that happens sometimes too. Okay, we're talking about exercises. And so often what happens when, with new teachers, and I see this as well with experienced teachers as well, but I see it obviously more often with new teachers, but often what happens is we get this, I'm supposed to use these exercises, or, we have to do breathing exercises, or we have to do, agility exercises or onset exercises. I have to do these exercises in order to learn these specific coordinations. And that's fair. That's fair. However, I know, right? However, often, especially with beginning teachers, there won't be a connection between the exercise and the actual performance of whatever it is we're learning in the exercise. So in other words, that technical skill or that coordination that we're learning in the exercise never gets a chance to be contextualized or learned by the brain within a song setting, or in the middle of a song setting, or as part of an overall performance. I'm saying this as performance, not necessarily like performing in front of a group or something like that, but as within the context of the actual task that we want it to accomplish, right? So within the actual song. So often what we get then is we get folks who are just learning an exercise. And this is the way the brain works. Heidi Moss talks about this pretty regularly, actually. And in fact, I've even heard her say that she never asks her students to do exercises, and that she doesn't do exercises. So I've even heard her say that, because the brain learns the task that we give it, right? So the brain, I like to compare these exercises to isolation exercises in strength training, and exercise scientists actually don't recommend that beginners start with isolation exercises. Yes, exactly. This is the same thing in you know, same thing in sports medicine, in many different other areas where we actually don't want to train. I mean, once we train for a while, then yes, we may need to take something out and like work it really specifically out of a song. But usually we're taking it out of the song and then we're putting it back into the song, right? We're not usually just learning agility for the sake of agility. We're usually learning agility within the context of a run in, a song, or in the context of a riff, if you will. So what happens is the brain literally learns the context of the exercise. So it learns how to do the exercise, and then unless we are carefully transitioning and applying what we've learned in the exercise into the song or into actual practice, the brain is like, oh, different task. The brain isn't necessarily going to take what I just learned in this exercise and put it into the song, right? We're going to have, it's two different tasks that we've taught the brain to do. And this comes up quite a bit with folks when we're working on technical exercises in, say, folks, teachers, because I'm here in Canada where the Royal Conservatory of Music is very popular and well known. Often when we have those exercises in the when we're working toward examinations, the Royal Conservatory of Music or the Canadian Conservatory, there's also a conservatory system in Australia and the UK. And the Royal Conservatory is now, the RCM is now in the States as well. But these conservatory systems have, along with each grade level, have a set of exercises that you're going to learn along with each grade level. And the exercises have a connection to the other information that you're learning at each grade level. So if you're learning about major thirds and perfect fifths, one of the in your ear training part, one of the exercises is going to be 1 3 5 3 1 or something like that. It's going to be relevant to the other information and the other technical exercises, etc., that you're going to do. But what generally, very often, almost all the time, and I've taught the Royal Conservatory of Music for years and years, and I did the Royal Conservatory of Music as a musician, as a young singer. What generally happens with singers in this system is we learn how to do the exercises really well, and then unless we're so intentional about making a connection from the reason I'm learning this chromatic scale to something in a piece, all we've done is learned a chromatic scale, which isn't bad in and of itself. It isn't necessarily a bad thing. It's just that all we have then is a separate task from the actual coordination that we need to sing. Or to sing in a song, right? Or to have chromaticism within a song. Now, some brains make these connections a little bit more easily without having to have that that very intentional transition, but the majority of us do not. Because, like I said, we've taught our brains to do this task, which is this technical exercise, which is, I'm singing a scale and then I'm singing the scale back down, so I'm going up and then I'm going down, or I'm doing a 2-octave scale, or I'm doing, 3 different vowels, or I'm doing a messa di voce, and now I've got all of these great technical skills, and then I go sing my song, and that's a whole separate task. So what I wanted to say today is consider, I like to call this scaffolding exercises, and I don't know, at some point, as you know, the concepts that I talk about, at some point, I'm sure I'm going to find someone who's actually created a real word for this concept, and I've been reaching for it for however long now. I call it scaffolding, but I'm sure someone somewhere has, done actual research and, written a paper and actually, uses the right, or has coined some phrase for this. But so something to consider is scaffolding your exercises, meaning in the back of your mind, the coordination requirement always has a final landing place in a song or in a performance outcome. And again, I don't necessarily mean performance like, a formal, like I'm singing in front of a thing, but it has a final performance outcome in your mind. And so if you're taking something, if you're working on agility, if you're working on registration, if you're working on a released belt sound, if you're working on middle voice coordination, if you're working on moving through, strengthening head voice, if you're working on, which is really registration, but whatever, if you're working on a piece that has requires intense breath coordination. Silent Noon comes to mind for those of you who are Western classical singers. Silent Noon, for example, requires this like incredible breath coordination. Just working on breathing beforehand is not going to get you the breath coordination you need in the song. They're two different tasks in the brain. So you've got to find the way to make this connection. So I have the final outcome in my mind. Then I'm going to pare back and I'm going to start the exercise. Maybe, so let's take Silent Noon, for example. So Silent Noon, or any kind of extended breathing phrase that I need to find my extended and well-managed breathing for a specific phrase or a song. So I have that first, your hand lies open in the long, fresh grass, like that opening phrase. I've got that whole opening phrase in my mind as the final outcome. So I'm going to just backtrack, and then I'm going to scaffold to get to that outcome again, right? So I'm going to back engineer. And I'm going to say, okay, so I want to be able to sing the final outcome. What are the aspects that I need to have in this final outcome? First of all, we're also going to add a little bit of listening to it, but whatever, not for right now. So what are all the things that I need in place in order for this final performance to happen? I need to have this consistently released breath. I need to have a consistently shaped vocal tract in order to respond to the flow that's required, how this breath works, and all that stuff. And I need to have it consistently, I put this in big quotes because it's not actually consistent. I actually need to be shaping frantically to go through this very long phrase and still have the coordination to have efficient tonal outcomes and efficient breathing while I'm changing vocal tract shape and vocal fold closure and vocal fold speed for changing pitch, changing vowels, and changing consonants. So I need all of those things to come together. And one of the big enemies of like a long breathing thing is locking in the body, right? So maybe the first thing I'm going to do in my exercises at the beginning of the lesson, maybe, and this is part of the reason, I don't know how many of you have gone into some, have had some really, really skilled teaching. My voice teacher in my graduate work is an incredibly skilled teacher, Lauren MacDonald at the University of Toronto, and she very often will say, what are we working on today? Meaning, where are we going, right? So then in her mind, she knows where we're going. She says, okay, and she knows, okay, for example, working on Silent Noon maybe, right? So I'm going to be bringing you Silent Noon today. Okay, great. So she knows where we're going. So then the exercises, we start the exercises and we start the beginning of the lesson tailoring toward what we're learning in that, toward that final outcome. Exercises without like any connection to anything, not really that useful. They're really useful for just learning the exercise, right? Okay. So maybe then I start the lesson, or I start the work in the lesson, or the segment of the lesson with movement. Maybe I get some hip movement going. Maybe I've got some shoulder rolls happening. So then I'm saying, I'm teaching the body that we have this release through the body. I'm starting with that kind of shoulder roll, and then maybe we're going to do some lip trills. And maybe in my mind, I'm getting the lip trills ready for that long phrase, right? Not even maybe, in my mind. So I'm not letting go, right? This is the foundational part of this exercise. The foundational part is I'm getting my body engaged, I'm getting my body released and engaged, I'm giving the muscles that may want to lock in to support or to help out, I'm giving those muscles something else to do. Am I going to stop that and then go to the next part of the exercise? No, I'm going to scaffold. So I'm going to add breathing and breathing and phonation to this movement in my body. So I'm scaffolding the exercises. So my brain is learning all of the things it needs to do in order to have that final outcome, right? If I just do this and then I don't apply anything to it, yay, my body's warmed up. My body's like loose. Now, as soon as I now do my phonation, my body's going to go back to being locked up, right? Because my body learned how to do that task, but now I need to scaffold. I need to add the next step into that exercise so that my body didn't just learn that one task. So my body learns the task in context, creates the whole task. So now I maybe so maybe in my mind, I know approximately, I'm maybe going to even sing in my mind, your hand lies open in the long, fresh grass. So I'm going to sing that in my mind. And I'm going to do maybe just a tongue trill, maybe a tongue trill, maybe some kind of, maybe I even just start with some inhalations. Maybe I do some S's. And the S's are going to be approximately the length of the breathing that I need for the next, to get to do this song, right? They're not just going to be S's out of context, or they're not just going to be lip trills out of context. They're going to be connected in my mind. Whether they're connected in the student's mind or not, it doesn't have to be necessarily, but you, as you're working with the student toward this final outcome, are going to keep this in your mind, how we're scaffolding, how we're bringing all of these together so that we're not just doing an exercise for the sake of doing an exercise, because then you're only learning an exercise. So, like this and that, and then maybe I do some inhalations, and then maybe I do some, sorry, I'm trying to like signal with my hands that I'm singing Your Hand Lies Open in my head. I am singing that opening phrase in my head, and I'm going to go through that whole opening phrase with an S. And then maybe I might play the phrase on the piano, or maybe I might play someone fabulous singing it, and the student then is doing an S along with that fabulous, so they're hearing it. Their body is learning that we can have all of this release all the way through, and maybe their body is also learning some kind of, maybe we're also including some kind of gesture that is allowing my body to know what to do as well. That's kind of ingraining things, encoding things a little bit. And then maybe I do that first line with a tongue trill, with a really slow tongue trill. But you see how I'm scaffolding. I'm never like jumping to the next exercise without still being in that first part of the exercise. And then eventually we get to singing the whole phrase, but maybe we sing it with some tongue trills first, then maybe we go to vowels, and then maybe we throw in the consonants. This kind of scaffolding work means we get there with all of the, bringing along all of the things I've learned along the way. So I'm building on all the things that I've learned along the way. There are faster ways to do this. It doesn't have to be all that many steps. The main point is this: exercises without a final context in mind, and without some way to transition into that final context, where we're not just jumping, means that the exercises have meaning to the body and to the memory and to the brain. Rather than, I just learned this exercise and now I've learned that task and now here's my other exercise, this other task, right? So we're going to connect all of those exercises without meaning or without connection or context, Just another task that you're learning. Not a thing. This isn't, this isn't like Karate Kid, right? This isn't wax on, wax off. We're not working with like a physical thing like Karate Kid, where you learn how to do wax on, wax off, wax on, wax off, and then, oh my gosh, I'm all of a sudden I can like block things or whatever. I know karate. This isn't how this works, right? That's not the way that works. I'm not saying that it isn't the way like learning karate could work. I have no idea. I'm just saying in singing, that isn't the way this works. In singing, our brains do not do this thing. This isn't like if I sing, although maybe there's a relationship there. I don't know. Who knows? Maybe there's. Somebody make that work. Feel free to make that work for you. But anyway, the point remains: scaffold your exercises. Make sure that there's a final context in mind. And if you're teaching the Royal Conservatory of Music, try to find ways that those technical exercises actually can fit into your repertoire. And if not, just know that you're teaching technical exercises as a separate task from singing. Those technical exercises aren't necessarily going to, once a singer knows all of those technical exercises, yeah, you're going to go ahead and say, Sarah says, I'm going to go ahead and say that's not how karate works either. It's possible. I don't know. Right? Who knows? I mean, it's possible because the movements were so, specific maybe, but I don't know. Who knows? No one should question, what's his name? No, I can't remember his name. We shouldn't. Who am I to question the great master? His name I can't remember. Anyway, right. Oh, you're so welcome. You're so welcome. Yes. If you're teaching, like I said, if you're teaching RCM, Royal Conservatory of Music, those technical exercises, they're basically just like learning another song, right? It's like, you're just learning another task there. So they aren't necessarily like learning a chromatic scale. It's great for your ear, and it may be useful at some point in another song that is going to give, where you might have some chromaticism. That might be, it's kind of great for your ear. It's great for coordination, but it isn't necessarily super going to transfer over, right? We're learning two separate tasks. So, okay, great. Have a terrific Monday. Have a great week. Think about how you're structuring exercises and warm-ups, if you do warm-ups. Think about how you're structuring exercises and warm-ups. And really consider, especially with warm-ups, because warm-ups so often, so often with our warm-ups, I've talked about warm-ups before, but so often with our warm-ups, we kind of divorce them from context, right? So we're like, ooh, let's get the body going. Terrific. As soon as I start phonating, my body isn't necessarily going to remember what I just did. Well, it's not that it doesn't remember, but my body, okay, language isn't working right now. My body thinks of those as two separate tasks. So warming up is great. Make sure that it's connected to something with context. Make sure that you move through that warm-up, you scaffold it, and move through to something with context. Okay? This is more efficient teaching, right? Then you don't have to teach like 400 different things. It's more efficient for you. You get to talk less, which is amazing. The singer gets to sing more, which is amazing. They get to do more. It's a more efficient use of time because the singer isn't learning like 4 different things. 4 different tasks. They're just building on the first task they learned, right? We're just scaffolding up. That's all we're doing. And it's deeper learning. It's a win all around. Everybody wins. Everybody wins. So think about what you're doing in the studio this week and see if there are places where you can scaffold or where you can be more efficient with how you use exercises and technical exercises, warm-ups and technical exercises. Sorry, Elizabeth, so from the perspective of us as teachers, are we starting with a specific piece of repertoire in mind, or can we generalize? Yeah, Mr. Miyagi, thank you, Kevin. Yeah, who am I to argue with Mr. Miyagi? Elizabeth, this is a great question. My preference is to start to have I mean, anybody who's worked with me will know that at some point in the lesson, I'm like, okay, let's apply this. We've got to get this into a piece, right? Let's apply, let's apply. So I'm never like, okay, now let's sing. I'm like, now we get to apply. Now we get to put the context around it. So it isn't necessarily that we have to have a specific piece or end game in mind, or end piece or repertoire in mind for every skill that we're learning. But at some point, that skill has to be put into context, and the sooner the better. So if you're, even if you're not necessarily working on on a piece of music that has the skill that you're working on in it, something to consider is finding repertoire that has that skill in it. And the other thing to consider is like, why are we working on that skill right now if what we need is these other skills for this repertoire that we're working on. Hopefully that makes sense. Like, we don't have to start with an end piece in mind every single lesson and every single exercise. Absolutely not. But you do want to have something, somewhere to go where the application, where what I just learned can be put into the context of how I'm going to use this in real life. Hopefully that makes sense. Elizabeth, it's a good question. Yeah, great question. Mr. Miyagi. I can't believe I didn't remember Mr. Miyagi. Yeah, don't argue with Mr. Miyagi. Alrighty, have a great day. Oh, that's awesome. You're welcome. Maybe 6:41 a.m. in California, waking up the brain. Oh, yay. And you're welcome, sort of. Makes total sense. Oh, good. Thanks, Elizabeth. That's terrific. All right. You're so welcome. You're so welcome. Have a terrific week. I'll see you on Friday, where we'll talk about, if you have a hammer, everything looks like a nail. And applying that concept in the voice studio. Take good care. Let's end that one.